Let's see what that does. And we are in Siman Kufbet. This is a Chazarah Din Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. We'll look at some, the Shulchan Aruch. I really want to spend time with the Mechaber himself here because in the class we did a lot of background stuff and even Nosei Kelim, but kind of less time I felt like with the Mechaber. And also we're going to look at, of course, some Ber Hetev, some Pitchei Tshuva, and so forth. So with that, I'll start out with Seif Aleph, Kol Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, in the Mechaber, in the Shulchan Aruch. Kol Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, Kegon Beitzah Shenoda B'Yom Tov, Sheruya Lemachar, Im Nitarva B'Acherot, Bein Shlema, Bein Trufa, Eina Betela, Afilu Be'elef, Ve'afilu Safek Im Noda B'Yom Tov, V'Nitarva B'Acherot, Asurot, Ve'im Nitarva B'She'ena Mina, Betela B'Shishim. Okay, so Shulchan Aruch rules the following things, right? If it is going to have permissibility, we don't know what that means yet. That's the later seifim, but the example is a very simple example, the one that this actually all comes from at the beginning of Masechet Beitzah. You have an egg that is born on Yom Tov. It's a muksa egg now, but tomorrow it'll be mutar, right? You can use that egg, and it gets mixed up with other eggs, whether it's a whole egg, whether it's a scrambled egg. Right, you have a bunch of scrambled eggs with the scrambled egg, and it doesn't matter. Then that it's not batel at all. Even right, we have this formula even with in 1,000, and even if we're not sure if it was nodal Yom Tov, you have an egg that may have been born on Yom Tov, right? Whatever that suffix may mean, we actually didn't get into that. But then it gets mixed up with other ones. They are all asur. But if it's mixed up with things that are not its kind, then it is batel, right? So it doesn't be min b'mino, which is a machloket we saw, but not necessarily a machloket. It only per Rashi shita on Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, you could make a claim that it doesn't have to be mino. Definitely not per the Ran's shita though, where his whole shita is based on the fact that it's truly min b'mino if it's the Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin. So okay. And Rashi's, just to remind people, Rashi's shita of all this was, someone tell me, what was Rashi's shita?
Is that it's because you're gonna why take the kula of bitul if it's gonna be totally fine soon enough.
Exactly, right? Which is actually a very powerful thing of like bitul is not our ideal in this world, right? That it still has. I heard someone finally, so I was telling you when I was watching, because I missed Shiurim when I was rewatching it and I'm yelling at the screen. Like, I guess like that's what most people do when they watch football. I do it when I watch Shiurim. That, I was like, someone say Choser V'nei, or come on, someone say it. And someone finally, I don't remember, it was one of you guys actually. It was Sarah, was it you said Choser V'nei, or it was someone
like there was a question that was like,
I think it was Yavni.
It was Yavni. Yavni said Choser V'nei, and I'm like, yeah, that's the thing, right? At the end of the day, and this is like a powerful thing in Bitul, per the Shita of Rashi and per other Shitot we've seen, Bitul is not an ideal, right? It's just not. And even if it's deoraita batel, right, it still holds some, I want to say, some trace on it of that this thing had an Isur in it. And that's not ideal. So let it go. And someone remind me what was the Ran Shita of for all this? It's a little more complicated. Alice, go for it.
I don't remember it exactly, but I felt that it's a bit more complicated, but it kind of like came out of the like assumption that for a bitul you need a strong isur or something. Must be like really asur if you want to make a bitul in the end, and because this thing is not 100% asur because it's going to be mutar, so then the whole bitul really doesn't work. So it
good. I'm going to strengthen that a little bit. Oh, Alice, I lost your. I can't hear you anymore. Can people hear? Everybody else hear Alice? No.
Is it okay now?
Now it's great.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Okay, so yeah, these were the headphones, but I have issues with the internet. So if I disconnect, so it's not intentional.
Yeah, let me strengthen that, or maybe Yavni, you want to strengthen that a little bit and give us the Ran Shita.
I was gonna let me see if I can remember it. the idea is that we have this opinion that min b'mino is not batel, and the idea is that the opinion that min b'mino can be batel is only because we say that it's not really min b'mino, but rather because one is isul and one is hetel, they're not really the same mean for that reason. And therefore, because in this case of min b'mino, where the isul is going to become hetel, we say that it sort of is closer to actually being one mean.
Exactly. Right. That's so in other words, it's a universal agreement. Actually, the mino is not batel, and the debate between Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda is really just a question of whether let's take an example, is basar nevela the same mean as basar shchuta, and the answer is, according to the Chachamim, is no. Rabbi Yehuda says yes, right, and that's really the debate. But everyone agrees min b'mino is not batel. That's the Ran's take on all of this, right? And I sent a Pri Megadim, Pri Megadim, with an idea of actually maybe I'll even say it out, of a nafka mina between the two of them, which I think came up a little bit in class too. Was he says if you have a treifa egg that's born on Yom Tov, right, then according to Rashi, then it still is Devar Sheshel Matirin and would not be Batel, because there will be a lesser Isur coming the next day, right? It'll at least remove one of those Isurim, and that's ideal, right? So let's just remove as many as possible first. But according to the Ran, it's not min b'mino because it's a beitzat trufa, not trufa. That would be a scrambled egg, a beitzat of a treifa, and therefore it doesn't matter. It's not min b'mino ever, and therefore it would be batel. That's the nafka. There are other nafka. There's other cases of a nafkamina that are brought, but that's just a big one. But it's a big one. In other words, it's a small slice, but actually I think it's very demonstrative of some of the concepts we're dealing with here. So
it seems like this Ran's approach like sort of overturns how we've been understanding min b'mino and would have like big consequences in other places, right?
Yeah. So it might also.
I was going to ask whether he's like how consistent he is in applying that understanding of what min b'mino is across the board.
It's a great question. I don't know the Ran well enough, but if you think about Batar Shema, Razlinan, right, and not Batar Tam, right, because I can't imagine a shchuta and a nevela taste different, right? But when if I give somebody meat, right, I'll tell them, you would call, one of them would be called, especially in a Jewish context of the world where we're very, one would be called meat and one would be called non-kosher meat or something like that, right? They would definitely have different names, so. It's that becomes an important thing. Okay, with that, we're in the middle still of the Seif Aleph. We're going slowly, thanks to me. I'll keep reading. I'll read the Haggah, Seif Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch. Haggah. I'm skipping all the parentheticals here. Miu, im. Here we go. Libno ba ma'achal. If one uses it to whiten food, this egg, right? Onetano b'kedera l'taken hakdera, right? Or you use it to fix up the food, right? Kigon, what's a good example? Shmla ua b'tarnagolet, right? You kind of stuff a bird with it, right? That makes it the bird. I don't know if that. I'm assuming here he means not just for taste, but also like it looks better, right? It looks like it's displayed nicely in front of people, so to speak. Eina betela, then it's not batel, and he says go see or Chaim Siman Tafkuf Yud Gimel, which is actually Hilchot Yom Tov, which is the whole siman on this very topic. So okay, and that's where we get the word chazuta, right? The chazuta navid is actually in Or Chaim, not not so. But it gets quoted by the Nosei Kalim here. Okay, that's
if it's propping up the chicken, isn't it Devar Mamid?
Oh, I don't think Devar Mamid. That's a great question. I never understood Devar Mamid.
No, like actually, if it's there structurally.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's not as permanent a structure, right? In the same way, but yeah, it's you're right. I don't know. It's a good. I don't
know. I don't know why people would stuff chickens with eggs, but
yeah. So,
can I ask for clarification on chazuta?
Sure.
So chazuta is like making it look better.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I always think of chazay as like associated with prophecy and like that, and so I'm like, I don't. What are we reading entrails? I don't think we're reading entrails.
It's to make it visibly pleasing, I think.
Okay, cool.
Is the way to put it. Yeah, to make it, the same way that you might whiten food to make it look. I don't know why whitening food necessarily would make it look nicer, but look cool.
I took this to mean like the gloss on like challah and stuff, right? It makes it shinier, it makes it more beautiful. I mean, in the case of the filling it with the eggs, if you have a chicken that's been like a pretty anemic, poorly fed chicken in its lifetime, it's not going to be very fat and whatever. But if you stuff it with the eggs, it's going to make it look like it's more substantive.
Oh, interesting. I like that. That's
yeah, I don't know.
So Isaac is always my expert on food issues, so I appreciate that.
Have to contribute something because I'm
which
not contributing a lot.
No, you contribute a lot, but it's a meaningful thing to say of that all of this requires a knowledge of food in your time, right? In a certain way, and food in their time as well, to understand what's going on. You really have to have a sense of how food is used, how it's served, how it's presented, and so forth. Okay, I want to look at the Ber Hetev in two comments here, one a little bit longer than another. Maybe Yavni, you want to take the Ber Hetev. Did I want to do the first one? Oh yeah, actually I do want to do the first Ber Hetev. Sorry, which is actually really important. It starts on it's Aleph V'nitar Va, the whole question of if it gets mixed in, because this is an important machloket going on here.
Okay. ונתערבה, כתב התז, ואם אותו התערובת נתערב אחר כך בתערובת שנית, כתב לקמן סימן ק"י סעיף ח' דמותר. והשח כתב דאפילו בשתי תערובות אסור, בדבר שיש לו מתירים.
Yeah. This is this debate between the Shach and the Taz here about what if you have a mixture that has Devar Sheshel Matirim in it in the first place. And one of them's like, that's too removed, right? By the way, the one of them is the Taz, and so therefore that's mutar. We don't go that far with the Gezerah. And the Shach says, no, that's a source still. So this doesn't, I know this is supposed to be a bottom line halacha class, that doesn't give us a bottom line, because this thing is like taught in machloket at the end of the day. So good. Actually, I'm trying to remember if the Radbaz dealt with this. There was an interesting tshuva. I don't know if I still have it up. I was going to put it for you guys. I'll post it afterwards of the Radbaz on these issues. The Radbaz is a very early Acharon, living in is he living in Northern Africa? I can't remember quite now, right? Or maybe Spain. Okay, and Yavni, read the next one, B'she'ena mina.
Sure. An early Acharon wouldn't likely be living in Spain, right?
Not Spain. Sorry, not Spain. He was. I think he was Spanish. No, he was, and he leaves. Yeah. He's like kind of a contemporary of the Mechaber, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So.
B'she'ena that.
Yeah.
B'she'ena katav hashach denireh. Wait, what was that? B'she'ena.
This is the Shulchan says it is batel v'she'ena mina.
Right. כתב השח דנראה דהכה אזלינן בתר שמה ולא בתר טעמה, דאם הוא שווה בשמה, אף על גב דלא שווה בטעמה, הווה למין במינו ולא בטיל, ואם אינו שווה בשמה, אף על גב דשווה בטעמה, הווה שלא במינו ובטל. So the Shach says that when it says min b'mino versus min b'she'ena, we know we're talking about Shem and rather than Tam.
Yeah, both Lekula and Lechumra, right? He says in both ways. Which, by the way, if you remember, the Mechaber thinks that generally paskins that we go after Tam, and the Ramah paskins after Shem. But here, I think he's making that even the Mechaber agrees in Devar Sheshel Matirim we go after Shem. So, which would incorporate the Ran's thinking in then, right at that point, I think, because as I said, I think the Ran has to think that it's about Shem and not about Tam. But good. All right, one more Ber Hetev, a little bit longer one. Sarah, I'm going to make you take it. Leave no to whiten the ma'achal.
Leave no. The kevan to the chazut avid lo batil k'zi'ita be'orech chaim siman to in this place I ain't sham. I'm not going to read all the numbers. Okay. Even nu l'kdei rad l'takinita לתקן איתתמה במהרי דכל שנותנים זה בזה לתקן מקרה מין במינו, כגון מים ומלח בעשייה, דחשיבה מין במינו, כיוון שהם מתקנים את העשייה. So like if you have, if it's something that's sort of like, I don't know, playing an essential role, we have this logic from the Mahari that water and salt in dough are considered min bimino because they are like kind of constitutive of this thing we call dough, even if like water is not the same mean as flour.
But the Taz is going to come in and say, don't make a mistake. So keep going.
וכתב התז, ואין לטעות מכוח זה, לעניין מה דאמרינן בהרבה דוכתי, אחד בתרי בעתיל במינו מן התורה. ובאינו מצינו... ובאינו מינו צריך 60 מן התורה. ולומר דגם שם הווה מין במינו, מידי דמתקן הקדירה, כמו כן דשם שם תלוי בתם, כיוון שנותן תם באינו מינו. והי נותן תם קדירה, ממילא יש לו שם חומרה, דאינו מינו. Okay, so the Taz disagrees with this, and he says that based on something that we say in lots of different places, that things can be batel, things that are min b'mino can be batel min Torah in 1 and 3. Or like, sorry, not 1 and 3, 1 and like batel barov.
Yeah, 2 against 1, which is 3 total again. Yeah,
which is 3 total. Yeah. And for be'ino mino, we do it b'shishim. ולומר דגם שם הווה מין במינו במידי דמתקן הקדירה כמו כאן דשם שם תלוי בתם. So in other words, we have these rules, they go by tam. There's no reason that just because they're providing this like extra other function that we should deviate from the original standard. And so when things are min be'enu mino, they produce a flavor that is distinctive. And when they don't, they don't.
To put it another way, right, in regards to Devar Sheshem Matirin, these are min b'mino, and therefore us, not batel. But in regards to like, well, what about when I can do bitul on them? Should I consider them min b'mino? And then say, well, what if you have like, I have some dough, I added some asur salt to it, and then I spilled it, right? Don't ask how the salt is asur, but let's just play it for the moment. And I spilled it, nishbach, I lost some dough somehow, and I'm like, safek, oh, mina Torah, it's batel varov. No. Don't think you can do that, right? This is right, because here now it's because what's the whole reason that mino is only b'shishim? Because it gives flavor, and this thing is giving flavor to it,
right?
Yeah, and so don't think you can use this lakula, right? Don't make that mistake. That's what the Taz says. I think it's just, I found that personally, obviously this is all biased to what I think, but like a very important reminder, that you don't learn from Devar Sheshem Matirin towards other things that are batel necessarily. So. Okay, good. Well, all right. I would like to press on to Bet in the Shulchan Aruch. The Mechaber Alish, would you read?
Yeah, sure. יש מי שאומר שלא אמרו דבר שיש לו מתירין, רק שהמתיר עתיד לבוא על כל פנים. או אם המתיר בידו לעשות בלא הפסד. אבל דבר שאינו בידו, ואינו ודאי שבא המתיר, אינו בדין דבר שיש לו מתירין. So there are those who say that davar sheyesh lo matirin can come up only in the situation when inevitably it will become mutar in the end, or matir beyado. So what's the meaning of the matir beyado here? So basically, like if you can do it like without any loss, but I don't know if the words like hamatir beyado has in it like.
Yeah, I'm gonna push that a little bit, right? In other words,
if you do it intentionally, or
either it will naturally become on its own mutar, like the Beitzano da Yom Tov. It's not Yom Tov anymore, it's mutar. or if you could easily fix it, right? It's something that you could easily make kosher. We saw this, for instance, if you drop in some tevel to chulin, right? What you can do is you can be mafresh from a different pile, right, of tevel onto that.
Okay.
In order,
right. Okay, makes sense. Okay, great.
Yeah. Or maybe because you happen to already be going to Yerushalayim, you happen to take the Maser Sheni with you. That was in class 2. Someone finally said it, like, yeah, everyone goes to Yerushalayim at the end of the day.
But if it's not any of these situations, so it's not davar sheyesh lo matirin. Therefore, לפיכך ביצה של ספק טרפה שנתערבה באחרות, אינו בדין דבר שיש לו מתירין, לפי שאין המתיר בוודאי ואינו בידו. So therefore, non-kosher, the suffix of egg, which is suffix treifa, which was mixed with other beitzim, so it's not davar sheyesh lo matirin, because in the end it won't be mutar, and he cannot like fix it with any other procedure like that.
Exactly.
Just non-kosher egg.
I mean, you could wait 12 months and see if it turns out, right? But we saw this, but at the end of the day, either it was mutar to begin with, or it was a sur, and it's not something that you get to fix in that sense. But just to note, if you look at the Shach and Zayin, we're not going to do it inside. He is a little bit aghast at the Shulchan Aruch here. He says, why quote this as Yesh Misha Omer? Like, everyone agrees on this. This principle is just like overall majority, and you're like a Yesh Misha Omer. Like, what? Where did you get that? And I think if I remember correctly, he ends it with a Sarich Chiyun. And this comes from the Rashba, if you remember, and other people saw that. And this is my guess as to why there's a Yesh Misha Omer actually here. If the Mechaber didn't like the formulation of the Tur on this piece, he felt that because he did De Morgan's law incorrectly, where he had he said either you have to do this or this, and then he did the not of it incorrectly. But it's worth looking there. So there's a guess. I don't remember if I got this for myself, or maybe it's something I had a discussion with somebody some time ago. So I apologize if I'm not quoting somebody I should. That maybe his Yesh Misha Omer here is because he's nervous because the Torah seems to use different language than the Rashba on this. But okay, that's Bet. Let's do Gimel. I don't think I had. Yeah, I think I wanted to go on to Gimel at this point. Isaac, are you readable?
Sorry, yeah. If there's weird shaking noises, it's because the only thing that keeps my cats from ruining my couch is a jar of beans being shaken in their direction. So please take my apologies in advance. Okay. Kli shenesa bivliat isul, shenitarav ba'acharim ve'eno nikar batal berov, ve'ein danin oto kedavar sheyesh lo matilin, and then Haga לפי שצריך להוציא עליו הוצאות להגיד לו וכל כיוצא בזה. Okay, so you have a pot that became aser because it absorbed some iser, and that pot or like other cooking utensil gets mixed in with others, and you don't know which is which. So like, maybe you accidentally dip your dairy spoon in a meat dish and then you put it back with the other spoons. The vessel is considered batel barov. So if you have more of the kosher ones than the treif ones, then it doesn't matter. And you don't consider davar sheyesh lo matirin.
Good.
Because according to the Ramah, because you would need to put some sort of expenditure into doing Hagalah into it. And one of the things that qualifies something as davar sheyesh lo matirin is that you don't have to like spend anything or like really do anything to make it mutar, right? It just sort of like you set it aside and it will become mutar.
Exactly. So, or as we saw, have a small thing. However, let's take a look at the Ber Hetev. I think maybe I've done this one in class. Hotzaot, it's Vav. Isaac, keep reading for us.
Okay. Hotzaot. Katav Hashach de Maharil Holek al Ze de Hotzaot HaHagala Hu Davar Mu'at Ureya Mima'aseh Sheni Dehave Davar Sheyesh Lo Matalin Al Yidei Ha'ala Li'Yerushalayim B'Chulei. Okay, yeah, we did talk about this in class. Okay, so the Shach says that the Maharil does not agree because the effort or the outlay for Haggalah is so tiny. And his proof for this is in the case of Maaser Sheni, which is Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, or is considered Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, and what you need to do for that is to take it to Jerusalem. So in other words, if taking it all the way to Jerusalem, which is a huge pain in the butt, is not considered Hotzaot, then obviously dunking something in water is not Hotzaot. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, wait, where did it go? Oh, yeah, Ian Shah. V'yesh lachush b'dvarav b'makom she'in hefsed meruba, v'gam nirei li sheyesh lishhot hakelim ad shelo yehu ben yomo, ואז שרי מן התורה, ואפילו בכל אחד
בפני עצמו.
או בפני עצמו אסור להשתמש עד אחר
מעת לעת.
הטור לא כתב להווה דבר שיש לו מתירין, אלא משום שצריך להוצא הוצאות, ובכל הגוונה יש לו מטילים מן התורה בלי שום הוצאות.
לכולי עלמא אסור.
לכולי עלמא אסור.
Good. Stop there for a second. Okay.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So basically he says, I have questions about this in a case in which there is no Hefsed Meruba. And it also seems to me that you can just like let the Kalim sit until they're no longer Ben Yomo, because that would also be Mutar Deraita. Although, doesn't that bring up the whole Jose Veneer thing? I don't know.
Yes. I think the idea here, though, is that, right, again, yeah, this comes back to the Rashi, though, is like, if you're going to do this, right, there is a Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, like there's one level of heter that you can allow to have happen, is like, let it sit. You don't have to do anything. You just let the pot sit for a day. It's really easy, right? And Doraita, everything's fine, right? Derabanan, no. Okay, but and even then, right, you can even make a claim. Right? He doesn't say this here, right? The whole Derabanan thing is because of the of Ben Yomo, right? Is the whole reason here, and therefore, which we're going to do next week. And therefore, maybe you even say that, this is never something you would use Ben Yomo because it's Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, and so even better. Maybe I want to rethink that before I say that out loud again. But it's I realized it wasn't quite coherent, but it's okay. So yeah, at the end of the day, at least allow the Isur Deraita to go away, right? Don't say this Patel. Let's let the Isur Deraita go away. Okay, so there's Isur Rabbanan. So now we can say now there's a lot of Hotzot to get rid of the Isur Rabbanan, and then if maybe there's Hefsed Merubeh, then you can use it. But at least wait the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so even though each one is a surah in and of itself to use until the next day, the Tur didn't say this. The Tur didn't say that it's not Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, except that that's not the reasoning he used. Instead, he used the reasoning that you would need to put some outlay, some like money or whatever.
Right. You could even say that like why would we let it doesn't quite work because the whole Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin idea is Rabbanan anyway, but they could say like because I guess you could say like why should the fact that Rabbanan we require you to do Haggalah become a kula on this, that now it's a Devar Sheyesh, like that now it's not a Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, like it's a Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, you wait a day and then
exactly. Yeah, it's a deoraita devar shematirin, but because you're right, even though it's the Rabbanan, but because of the Rabbanan rule on it, all of a sudden it becomes the Rabbanan make you work harder to make the thing kasher. All of a sudden it loses its status as devar shematirin. It's like a little bit crazy. So, but good. I want to stop on this piece here. I think there was a good piece actually. A whole question about if a basar pot gets mixed in milchik pots, are they the same mean or not? Or maybe they're not mean or no, not batal v'shishim, right? Which is a whole interesting question. But for another time, because I want to actually flip back with this to go back to the Pichet Tshuva, the first one on this siman, nitarva be'acherot. This is so I'll read it actually. Nitavar be'acherot. Ayin b'shutim shebesof sefer sidurosh shel Shabbat Tshuva Gimel. This is it's I think a Hasidic work. I found it on Hebrew books. This is Sidur shel Shabbat that he's got a series of tshuvot at the end. In fact, actually, hold on. I think I still have it up. Let's see if I can find it quickly. I can share it in here. Maybe. Response. No. All the fun things I have on my screen. Oh, here we go. Siddur Shabbat. Yeah, people can see it here. If you want to look, it's very not great print, but there it is. It's actually this is from Dot. This isn't from Hebrew books. But okay. Anyway, I'll give the case here. Shel Shabbat Tshuva Gimel. Shnistapek b'davar sheyesh lo matirim. Shindarev. Right. Ve'achar kach piresh echad mehem. Right. So what happens? Let's say we have a devar sheyesh lo matirim, and then you take one out. Right. Iyamrinan kol de parish meruba parish. I'm finishing his thing. Delo shayach lamar ad shtochal be'isur tochal ad shtochal be'isur tochal leachar yom tov beheter. Right. Deha anan machzikinan de ein kan isur klal. Olo minan klal b'devar sheyesh lo matirim azlinan bataruva. Right. So there's a whole question. So what if I do take an egg out now and eat it, right? Or take it out? Let's not eat it. I removed it from that list. There's a bunch of eggs. One of them was no dabe yom tov. I take one out. Is it now? Can I say that I removed it from the majority and therefore it is mutar, or can I not say that in devar sheyesh lo matirim? Right.
With what?
Yavni, did you ask a question?
Sorry, I didn't follow. Could you explain that again?
So you have you have an egg shel dabe yom tov. It gets mixed up with a bunch of other eggs, right?
Mhm.
The whole thing is asur. But now I remove one of the eggs, right? Can I say that what I took was from the majority, and therefore what I took was not one of the isur egg, or can I not say that in devar sheyesh lo matirim? Does that not apply in this case? Right, this whole principle of kol de parish miruba parish. Everything I take out comes from the majority. Does it apply here or not? That principle, right? But it says, or do we say no? Look, you could just wait on that egg until after Yom Tov, and then the whole thing is mutar, right? So which applies here? All right. So even in this case, etc. All right. V'zeu gam ken bichlal davar sheyesh marim v'chein mashim b'tshuvat tzemach tzedek siman such and such be'emsa tshuva ayin sham v'chein katav hamagen Avraham, right? V'ayin b'sefer tzlach al beitza amud daled yoredeh amud bet b'divur amatchil ayin bet, sorry. But vehoil she'arich le'avi rayad yamrinan b'davar sheyesh matrim kol parish mira parish ayan sham v'chein yiradata chavot yair b'siman such and such. So the general gist of all this is that we in davar sheyesh marim we don't apply this principle kol parish mira parish. And I think the reason I thought this was interesting, I think this actually plays into the whole thing of a lot of the principles we have overriding both isur v'heter and that we have overriding the idea of things that are not batel seem to go out the window when we get to davar sheyesh lo matirim, because again, you can wait, right? You can wait and it will become kosher, and therefore we kind of avoid all sorts of leniencies, right? The safek beitza, right? Even though it's a safek derabanan, right? It's additional dabe yom tov we don't allow, right? There's all these things that we in davar sheyesh lo matirim we normally we are kulot that we just don't. we don't allow to enter the equation here because just wait and it will be kosher. So
This seems like another nafkamina of the Rashi Ran machloket, right? The
Good.
Ran
I
is
was-
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that too, that this seems like Rashi again and against the Ran. The Ran would say, no, of course you can, that's fine. So, okay, good. How are we doing on time? We've got 17 minutes. We can do something here. Yavni, read Gimel in, no, we did Gimel already, sorry. Read Dalet in the Mechaber, Sif Dalet.
יש מי שאומר דלא שייך דבר שיש לו מתירין, היכא מאכל מתקלקל. So if it's something that spoils, then you can't call it something that is דבר שיש לו מתירין. הדבר שיש לו מתירין אינו בטל, היינו דווקא עם האיסור בעין, או שיש עדיין ממשות האיסור בתערובת, אבל טעמו בטל. וכן אם אין איסורו מחמת עצמו בטיל, ולכן חתיכה שלא נמלכה תוך 3 ימים, אף על פי שיש אומרים דמקרי דבר שיש לו מתירין, הואיל ומותרת לצלי, אפילו הכי בטלה, דאין אסורה אלא מחמת דם הבלוע בה.
Good.
Wait, should I translate or is that?
Translate up to there. Yeah. So,
Okay, so the Rama says this whole issue of Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin not being batel is only if like there's mamashut and it's like Devar Ba'ain. It's not an issue for tam. It doesn't apply to tam. Tam can be, but the taste of something that is yesh lo matirin can be batel, and and similarly, if it's something that is asul because of an isul tam, even if then it can be batel. Like because of getting an isul tam, because of and so then the example is something that didn't get salted when it was supposed to get salted.
Yep.
That is something that can be called a devar sheyesh lo matirin, because it's devar sheyesh lo matirin because you're still allowed to roast it, even if there's no way to salt it and cook it now. It still can be bataled because it's not the meat itself it isn't asur, it's the blood that's asur, that's absorbed.
Exactly. So, and I just, before you finish the Ramah, I go down to the Ber Hetev Chet. It's very short, Atzmo, that it has to come from Machmat Atzmo in Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin.
Should I read it?
Yeah.
כתב השח, דכל הפוסקים תפסו על
Al-Harav. Yeah.
Al-Harav? Is that the Ramah?
It's the Ramah. Yeah.
Right. I have it with like Gilshaim. I don't know.
I do too. And I don't, there's a reason they call him that, but I can't remember why. So.
על-Harav בזה כיוון דדבר שיש לו מתירים הוא כיוון דדבר שיש לו מתירים הוא מה לי בלוע או לא סוף סוף יש היתר לאיסורו. Yeah, so people don't agree with this idea that it's only if it's mechamat atzma.
Great. Yeah. So, but also, by the way, just we're not going to look at it this from a time perspective, but the Taz takes on, I think it was the Taz, yeah, that takes on the whole thing about the kalim that got mixed up together. Is like, why say it's because you need hotzaot? Say it's because it's davar shebalua, right? Like you missed that factor. And he says, no, it's because he wants to teach us also about the hotzaot. That's the reason, but it has 2 reasons that it's davar sheyesh lo matirin at the end of the day. But just, worth noting that fact. So, okay, keep going. This is a long Haggah. I want to do the whole thing here though, because I think it's important.
כל איסור שלא היה ניכר קודם שנתערב הווה בטל, אף על פי שהוא דבר שיש לו מתירין. So anything that is asur that wasn't like recognized as isur before it got mixed in, then it can be batel, even though it's a davar sheyesh lo matirin.
But we're gonna look at this. Gonna have major Shabbos implications in a second here. So it was really what we're gonna talk about is something, an action that happened on Shabbos that might be asur on Shabbat, but be mutar afterwards. So, but in particular, creating juice. We'll get there in a second. Yavni might remember this when we did Shabbos, but
Nope.
keep going. So.
מי שנדר מדבר אחד ונתערב אחר כך לדידי, מקרי דבר שיש לו מתירין, דהה אפשר לשאול על נדרו. So if you take an oath not to eat something, and then that thing gets, I don't know why it says, and then that thing gets mixed in afterward, I guess, as opposed to it having already been mixed in.
I think, but if it was mixed maybe potentially if it was mixed before you took the neder, maybe that would be okay.
Right.
But
yes, but then it's not, it's considered davar sheyesh lo matirin, so it can't be batal because you can go and cancel your neder.
Yeah, which is an easy thing to do, right? It's very easy to go to the chacham and to find either to release you from the vow. Okay, keep going.
דבר שיש לו היתר וחוזר ונאסר, כגון חמץ בפסח, לא מקרי דבר שיש לו מתירין, ויש חולקין בזה, something that becomes mutar and then goes back to becoming asur, the Rama says, for example, chametz b'Pesach, because now it is asur in Pesach, it will be mutar after Pesach, but then next year on Pesach, it will be asur again. That is not considered something that is davar sheyesh lo matirin, so it can be bataled, but there are those who disagree.
Yeah, and if you look at the Rambam, he seems to think the chametz b'Pesach, at least some chametz b'Pesach, has the rule of davar sheyesh lo matirin.
Seems reasonable.
Okay. And
ולא למקרה שיש לו מתירין, אלא אם כן הותר למי שנאסר, אבל אם נאסר לאחד, אבל אם נשאר לאחד לעולם אסור, אף על גב שמותר לאחרים, כגון המבשל בשבת, לא מקרי דבר שיש לו מתירין. So it's only considered a דבר שיש לו מתירין if it's going to become mutar for someone, for the person for whom it is now asur. It doesn't help if now asur to, if it's going to stay asur to one person, then it's not considered a davar sheyesh lo matirin. For example, if I cook something b'shogeg on Shabbat, you'll be allowed to eat it after Shabbat, but I'll never be allowed to eat it.
If you do it not b'shogeg, if you do it amazing. Sure. If you do it
b'shogeg, then I'll be able to.
Yeah, you'll be able to eat it after Shabbos too. So, and even according to some opinions, it's brought on the Mishnah Berurah that if you do it b'shogeg with Shabbat, maybe even other people can eat it on Shabbat too. But that's a whole other story. The Gra, I think, paskins that way as well. But yeah, so right, it'll be asur to you leolam. Other people will be mutar. It's not davar sheyesh lo matirin. All right, good. That's a lot to take in there. There's all these cases of things that are not davar sheyesh lo matirin. I want to look at two things here. One is ber hetev yud bet holkin. This is the question about whether or not something that will return to its state of isur is called davar sheyesh lo matirin. It's asur now. It'll become heter tomorrow or the next day or whatever it may be. Then a Pesach, and then it will go back next year to being asur. Is that davar sheyesh lo matirin? Maybe Sarah, you want to read?
Sure. Cholkin.
Yeah.
כתב השח בתורת חטאת פסק כסברה ראשונה והמהר"ל חולק עליו ואותן שתי סברות שהביא המחבר באורח חיים סימן דס יש לומר דפליגי נמי בה אי חמץ הווה דבר שיש לו מתירין או לא. So the shach seems to go according with it seems to he's just sort of recording a further machloket, right? It seems to think that is when he says Farah Rishonah, what is he actually referring to?
That it's not called davar sheyesh lo matirin.
That is not davar sheyesh lo matirin, but the Maharshal disagrees, and yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, this whole thing, especially Chametz and Pesach, is like an ongoing debate about whether or not it's Devar Shel Matirin. And then, of course, right, comes into the whole question about whether or not do the rules of Yesh Lo Matirin are that if that's the reason that Chametz and Pesach is not Batel, do the rules of Yesh Lo Matirin come into it, right? Things like, for instance, only Min B'Mino, or that Safek maybe doesn't apply, or stuff like that. Certain Sfekot. And so it may make a real nafkamin on Chametz on Pesach. It is also a reminder, though, that and this is in all shitot, Chametz on Pesach not being batel is a derabanan, not a deraita rule. So, but if I remember correctly, I think the Rosh says it's because it's something that we don't separate from the rest of the year, and therefore we're not used to it, or something like that.
Okay, I have a question which maybe is just like too obvious, and so everyone else has figured it out. If I have chametz that's mine on Pesach, and then Pesach ends, that is not fully mutar to me.
Yes, that's a good point.
So
yes,
I feel but like I get that that's like an extra
only
stricter.
Only for chametz itself. For tarovet chametz, it's not the case.
Tarovet chametz, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So that when they say chametz, they mean tarovet chametz.
Yeah. I know the chametz itself, if it gets mixed into something, or we're talking about taravot, right? So but it can also
right. Okay.
Yeah, it can also not be your chametz at the end of the day. So.
Oh, right. So if it's your chametz,
yeah,
I don't have a problem with chametz shavar. Okay.
So.
Sorry, I just needed to like spell that out.
Great. I didn't think about that, but you're right. It's an interesting point. But it's only tarovet chametz that's asur after Pesach. That's chametz shavar.
Right.
So it's not tarovet chametz. It's chametz gamor. That's
yeah.
So, but okay, one more pirchei tshuva. We have time. Alish, pirchei tshuva yud bet mevashel b'sh. Oh wait, there was one more I wanted to do. Sorry, I wanted to go back. I'll read it actually. Just based on time. This is Beratev Yud Aleph. This is the whole thing of it's not Nikar Mikodem, right? So Piresh Hashach, Kigon Gigit Mlea Anavim, Beutim, Vaya Harbe Yain Salul, Kodem HaShabbat, Mutar Likach Min HaYain B'Shabbat, right? So you have this barrel of you've got like grapes that are open, but you also have wine, and it's sitting there in Shabbat, and like some of the juice that came out into that barrel is going to be juice that got created on Shabbat, but nonetheless you're allowed to take from that wine on Shabbat. Right? It says no, because the new juice that has squeezed out on Shabbat that was batel in what was already in the barrel. All right. Right? Because there they didn't have it was grapes. It was grapes with juice inside them, but it was never called wine before Shabbos started, right? I think it's called temed, right? Which is like a weak water infused with grape juice. והענבים מתבקעים לאחר זמן, ויצא כל היין, מותר למשוך ממנו בשבת, לשתות, לפי שמעט יין שיוצא בשבת, מתערב ומתבטל עם היין שהיה בו כבר, ולא היה ניכר פעם אחת בפני עצמו מעולם. So same thing, you want to make this like water wine combination, this grape infused water, and you put full grapes in there before Shabbos, and some of them burst open, and they add some liquid. That's batel, either in Mimo, there's already maybe some there before Shabbos, and you can take from that on Shabbat because that's not Devar Shel Matirin.
Wait, but isn't our the example that we're getting this whole Devar Shel Matirin from the egg that was laid on Shabbat? It also didn't have the Shem before, right? Like how?
Oh, yeah, but it's not good. Yeah, so I think the idea is that it's not. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Then it's a good point. That it's not mixed into a bunch of other a mixture with a lot of other eggs initially. So it has its own kind of recognition at some point.
Okay.
Yeah. So in other words,
it is like laid straight into a pile of eggs, then this would apply.
Maybe, yeah. It's hard though, because those are like, discrete objects in a way that the grapes are discrete, but the juice isn't discrete in the eggs. So it always, like automatically becomes part of that mixture the moment it comes out. And there's never like, this is the juice, the independent juice from that grape that comes out. So yeah. It's a subtle point, and I think it's good. So, all right, one last piece. Maybe Alice, you want to read for us Pichei Tshuva Yud Bet.
I'm going there. Yud Bet. Okay. המבשל בשבת. Okay. עיין במגן אברהם סימן ש"ח סעיף ק"ב שכתב דמאירי שנתערב אחר השבת. אבל אם נתערב בו ביום, אסור לו. הואיל וחל דשיש לו מתירים לאחרים, ועין בשו"ת תשובה מאהבה, חלק א' סימן ו', בתשובת הגאון בעל,
נודה ביהודה.
אז נודה ביהודה, זה על מה שכתב בזה, אוקיי, ועין בתשובות שם. So look at Magen Avraham, who wrote that it teaches the case of Mavashel B'Shabbat. It teaches only about the case that it was mixed after Shabbat, after Shabbat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it was mixed on Shabbat, so it's forbidden. It's forbidden for the one who does it. But it should be okay.
In other words, I just want to translate this a little bit, right? If I cook it on Shabbos, it's now it's a sort of the whole world at the moment, right?
Right.
Let's do I cook it b'mezi just to make sure it really is a sort of the whole world according to all Shvitot, right? It's a sort of the world. It now mixes in with the mixture on Shabbat. When it became a mixture, it was a sort to everybody, right? And it's going to be, and therefore he says that is davar sheyesh matirim. And it's not permitted. But if it mixes in after it became mutar to some people, but not others, then it's not davar sheyesh matirim, right? And so if it happened after Shabbos, that's a different story. So and that's what it's actually I don't read that in the words of the Ramah. I think he's just not comfortable with the Ramah's idea here. But
sorry, what would be what's the haven't like what would be the alternative that like if it got mixed in after Shabbat, then what?
Then it's not the Davar Sheyesh Matirim, it's Batel, right? But if it got mixed in,
meaning if it got mixed in after Shabbat, then it's mutar even for me, the person
even for you. Yeah. So it's not the Davar Sheyesh Matirim, but on the other hand, because it's always a sort to you. Right at that point, right, which is a little bit that seems like it's like obvious, right? Of course, it's not the Davar Sheyesh Matirim because it's never going to change its state for anybody, right? The people for whom it's mutar, and for the people who it's asur, and that's it, right? End of story.
Right. So there's a shiur also for the one who cooks it like after Shabbat, like does it have to be b'shishim or what's the?
It sounds like b'shishim, right? It depends what it is, right? What we but lach v'lach yevesh ve'yevesh, right? And all that. But I guess it would have to be maybe no. It's davar sheyesh matirim. But let's say 1 in 60, right? If it drops in, that's batel. But he's saying the Magen Avraham is saying in the case where the mixture happened on Shabbat, then it's going to change state. And therefore, it is davar sheyesh matirim. It's really cholek on the Ramah, I think, in some ways, but he's trying not to be cholek and to sneak this in here. So I didn't look at the tshuva on it just to see if there was there's more. Yavni, you have a look of consternation on your face, which usually means
I'm not sure I quite follow the imagined scenarios, but that's okay.
Fair enough. We're over time, so I'll let you go over it again. All right. Hopefully, this was helpful for davar sheyesh matirim. Which is one of my favorite topics. I don't know why, but it is. And next week, of course, Tam Leaf Gum, which is such an important.